The sky was filled with smoke. Broken ships burned quietly in the distance. The once beautiful colony was now nothing but ruins and ash. Dead trees stood like black bones. The wind carried the smell of metal, blood, and fire. Eli, a human man, in his 30s, walked carefully through the wreckage. He had a rough beard, torn clothes, and tired eyes. He wasn't a soldier anymore, just a survivor. He held a small pack on his back and a broken rifle in his hand. He didn't expect to find anyone alive. His boots crunched on glass and broken stone. He passed destroyed homes, empty shells, and quiet machines. But then, he heard something, a soft noise like a small cry, hidden under a pile of debris. He paused, holding his breath, listening. The sound came again, a faint whimper, almost like a child. He dropped his bag and rushed to the rubble. Carefully, he pulled away broken wood and metal sheets. And then he saw her, a small alien girl, no older than 6 or 7. Her skin was pale purple, her hair silver and messy. Big golden eyes stared at him with fear. She was thin, dirty, and shaking. "It's okay," Eli said softly. "Drop into one knee. I'm not here to hurt you." The girl didn't answer. She just stared at him, her lips trembling. Her clothes were ripped, and her knees were scraped. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days, maybe weeks. Eli opened his pack and took out a piece of bread, his last one. It was dry, small, barely enough for one person. But he didn't hesitate. He broke it in half, then gave the larger piece to her. She stared at it, unsure if it was real. "Go on," he said, trying to smile. "You need it more than I do," slowly with shaking hands. She took the bread. She brought it to her mouth and took a tiny bite, then another and another, until it was gone. Tears rolled down her cheeks, though she made no sound. She looked at him like he was something strange, something rare. He gave her his water too. Not much, just enough to wash down the bread. She drank it slowly, carefully, as if she was afraid it might disappear. "What's your name?" Eli asked, but she said nothing. Maybe she didn't speak his language, or maybe she was just too scared. He looked around, worried. Night was coming, and the place wasn't safe. Bandits, slavers, and wild creatures often searched through the ruins. He couldn't stay here long. "I can't take you with me," he whispered, regret in his voice. "I live far away, deep in the mountains." He pointed to the stars above. "But you need to survive." The girl looked at him, then slowly reached out and touched his hand, just once, gently. Then she stood up, weak but ready. And before he could say another word, she turned and ran, silent as a ghost, into the darkness. Eli watched her go until she vanished into the smoke. He felt a strange ache in his chest. He didn't even know her name, but something told him he would remember her forever. A little alien girl, alone in the ashes, and the last thing he gave her was food and kindness, in a world that had given her only pain. He picked up his bag and walked away, not knowing that this small act, this moment, would change everything. Because years from now, the girl would return, and she would not be small, weak, or afraid. She would come with power, purpose, and a promise to repay the man who once gave her his last bread. Years passed like wind over stone. The colony was rebuilt, but not as it once was. The fires were gone, but the scars remained, and Eli, the man who had once given his last bread to a little alien girl, lived far away from it all. He had left the war behind. No more fighting, no more orders, no more blood. He had found a quiet valley deep in the mountain region. There, he built a small home out of stone and scrap, planted vegetables, raised animals, and spoke to no one unless he had to. Eli liked the silence. He liked the way the trees whispered in the wind. He liked waking up to birds and sleeping under stars. But even in this quiet life, he could not forget her, the girl with silver hair and golden eyes. He didn't know if she lived or died. He never saw her again, never heard anything about her kind. Sometimes when he closed his eyes at night, he could still see her little hand reaching out, touching his fingers gently before running off into the smoke. It wasn't just memory, it was guilt too. He had walked away, left her behind. He told himself it was the right thing, that she was safer on her own. But a part of him always wondered, what if she hadn't made it? What if she had died just minutes after he turned away? One day, while working on his small water pump, Eli stopped and looked up. Something had moved at the edge of the trees. But when he stared harder, there was nothing, just branches swaying, as if something had passed by. He stood there for a moment, listening, then went back to work. It kept happening. Shadows at the edge of the woods, a faint sound of movement during the night. His dog growled sometimes at empty space, but when Eli checked, he found nothing. He told himself it was animals, or maybe his mind playing tricks. But deep inside, something else whispered, "She's watching." She never forgot. Once a month, Eli would go to the small trading outpost nearby. He would bring eggs, dried meat, and herbs to exchange for tools and supplies. The people there didn't know much about him. They called him the quiet man in the hills. He didn't talk much, and they didn't ask questions, but one day, a boy ran up to him, breathless. "Hey, mister," the boy said, eyes wide. "Some alien woman came through yesterday, tall, strong, armor like I've never seen." Eli raised a brow, silent. "She asked if we knew a human who once helped a child in the old colony ruins." Eli's heart stopped just for a second, but he didn't show it. "What did you tell her?" he asked quietly. "Nothin'," the boy shrugged. "She didn't look angry though, just searching." Eli walked away, his mind racing. He didn't believe in luck, but he believed in signs. That night, as he sat on his porch, the wind carried a strange scent. Not smoke, not metal, something clean, sharp and alien. He looked up at the stars. "She's out there," he whispered. "She remembers." The next day, he found something on his farm, near the fence, pressed into the soft earth. A single footprint, not human, small claws, deep heel, light step. He crouched beside it, touching the edge. It was fresh. He was being watched, but he wasn't afraid. He felt something else, something stronger than fear, hope. Back inside his cabin, he opened a wooden box beneath his bed. Inside was a folded cloth, stained with time. He pulled it out carefully. Wrapped inside was a small piece of metal alien, shaped like a charm. She had dropped it when she ran. He had kept it all these years. Eli stared at it in the firelight, then smiled quietly. "If you're out there, girl," he said, "I'm still here, and far beyond the stars." A ship cut through space. Inside, a warrior in silver armor sat. Quietly, golden eyes watched the screen as a small dot blinked his location. She closed her hand into a fist and whispered, in her own language, "I'm coming." The morning began like any other. Eli stood at the edge of his field, watching clouds drift across the blue sky. The crops were growing slow this season, but he didn't mind. He had enough food, enough peace, and the silence he had always wanted. But the sky changed. At first, it was just a flicker, like sunlight reflecting off glass. Then came the sound, a low hum that shook the air gently. Birds flew from the trees. Animals ran for cover. Eli squinted into the sky, shielding his eyes. Something massive moved above the clouds. Not one, not two, but three huge ships, silent and dark. They cast shadows across the hills and rivers. Their shape wasn't human design, alien tech, smooth and deadly. Hovered like giants above the forest. The people at the outpost noticed it too. Radios buzzed, alarms rang. Farmers ran into the fields, staring upward with fear in their eyes. Children cried, and some packed to leave right away. Invasion. Someone said, "No, not invasion, punishment." Another whispered. No one knew where the ships came from, but all of them agreed this wasn't good. Eli didn't run. He just stood there, arms crossed, staring at the sky. The same scent from before filled the air again, sharp and clean. His dog whined at his feet, but Eli didn't move. Hours passed, but the ships didn't attack. They hovered, silently, watching, Then one of them moved, slowly lowering to a clearing near the mountains. Its legs unfolded with a hiss of steam and light. A wide ramp dropped down to the earth. From the shadows stepped a figure, tall, armored, glowing. Slightly under the sun, the people watching gasped. The alien woman was unlike anything they had ever seen. Her armor was silver and white, covered in glowing lines and symbols. A flowing black cape moved behind her as she walked. Her skin was pale lavender, her hair now longer, braided in silver threads, but her golden eyes shone the same. She said nothing at first. Her soldiers followed in silence, forming a wide circle around her. They didn't raise weapons. They simply stood guard. Then she spoke. Her voice clear and strong. "I seek one human," she said. Her language was translated perfectly by the small device on her collar. Years ago, in a time of fire and ruin, a man gave life to a dying child. The people stared, unsure. He gave his last food, his last water, and his trust. Someone stepped forward cautiously. "What do you want from him?" The man asked. The alien warrior paused. "I owe him everything," she said, her voice soft now. "I've searched every system, every map to find him." In the crowd, a boy whispered to an old merchant, "That sounds like the quiet man in the hills." The merchant's eyes widened. Yes, he helped a child long ago. I remember that story." The woman turned her head toward the mountains. Without another word, she walked toward the forest path. Her soldiers followed, silent as shadows. She didn't need a guide. She already knew where he was. Eli sat on his porch when he heard the footsteps. He didn't reach for a weapon, didn't stand. He simply looked up, and there she was. She stopped at the edge of his field. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she stepped forward and removed her helmet. Her face was calm, older now, no longer a child. But those golden eyes, they were the same. "I found you," she said, her voice soft. Eli nodded once. "Took you long enough," he replied. With a smile, she walked closer, then slowly dropped to one knee. "I was nothing," she whispered. "No name, no family, no future, until you gave me hope." "I remember," Eli said quietly. "You didn't even speak back then." "I didn't need to," she replied, standing. "You gave me more than words, kindness, food, safety. You survived," he said. Looking her over, "You became something powerful." She looked around his small farm, the simple life he lived. "You still live alone." She noted. "I prefer it," he answered. "But I've got extra chairs if you want to sit." She smiled just a little, for the first time in years. Eli didn't feel so alone, and overhead, the great ships waited. Not for war, but for the man who had once fed a girl in silence. She sat across from him now. The same girl who once ate his last piece of bread under falling ash. Now taller, armored, stronger, and no longer afraid. But in her eyes, the child he saved still lived, soft, quiet, watching, remembering. Eli poured water into a metal cup and handed it to her. She took it gently, her fingers brushing his. No words were spoken for a moment. Only the wind moved, carrying the scent of trees, firewood, and the faint hum of ships above. "I thought I'd never see you again," he finally said. The alien woman looked down at the cup in her hands. "I didn't think I'd survive," she replied. "But I ran, just like you told me." Eli leaned back in his wooden chair, his eyes on the forest beyond. "I hoped you made it," he said. "I kept thinking, maybe she's out there somewhere. Maybe she's alive." She nodded, slowly. "I didn't just survive," she said. "I changed." Then she told him the story of how she ran through the burning forest until her legs gave out, of how slavers caught her, weak and starving, of how they threw her in a cage like garbage. "But I didn't cry," she said softly. "I remembered your voice. You need to survive." She escaped the slavers during a prison break, found shelter in a forgotten rebel camp on the edge of space. The rebels were cruel at first, suspicious of her strange blood and small body. But she earned their respect. She trained harder than anyone, fought better, learned languages, led missions. "They called me Ghostfire," she said, her eyes glowing faintly. I became a shadow in their wars. A leader, a voice. Eli looked at her and shook his head slowly. From that little girl in rubble, he whispered. You became a warrior. She smiled just a little. But I never forgot, she said. No matter how high I climbed, how far I flew. I remembered the taste of that bread, the feel of your hand. It was the first kindness I ever knew. Eli said nothing, but his eyes turned glassy. He blinked quickly and nodded. Didn't think giving a kid a scrap of bread would lead to all this, he murmured. Kindness spreads, she said, placing her hand on the table. It saved me. Now I want to use it to protect others, outside. Her soldiers waited silently, standing guard. They didn't disturb her, they knew. This meeting was sacred. Their leader, the fierce Ghostfire, had returned to where her strength was born. Do you know what I did when I got power? She asked quietly. Eli looked at her with interest. I searched, she said. Every time I entered a new system, I asked about you. Some laughed, she said, shaking her head. Others remembered stories, a quiet man in the hills. A stranger who once helped a child. You really searched all this time? Eli asked, surprised. For years, she said. I didn't care how long it would take. I made a promise to myself. If I ever found you, I'd repay you. He raised an eyebrow. Repay me. She nodded, her voice firm. Everything I have, ships, soldiers, resources, it's yours now. Eli chuckled dryly. I don't need an army, Ghostfire. I just want peace. She tilted her head, thinking, that I will protect this. Peace, she said. This land, your home. Everything you care about. It will never be touched. There was a long silence between them. Then she added, not just because of what you did back then, but because you're the only family I ever had. That made Eli stop. His lips parted slightly. But no words came out. He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, he didn't see a warrior or a leader. He saw the same little girl, trembling in the ash, holding a piece of bread in her hands. I never had kids, he said quietly. Never thought I'd live long enough to deserve it. Now you do, she whispered. Whether you want it or not, you have me. He chuckled again, this time softer. Well, I suppose I can make another chair, he said. She smiled, and it lit up her whole face, even with all her armor, weapons, and strength. She looked younger in that moment. She looked home, outside. The wind moved through the grass. The shadows of the great ships rested over the trees. But in the quiet heart of the valley, an old man and the girl he once saved sat together, and nothing had ever felt more right. Eli didn't know how long peace would last. He had lived quietly for so many years. But the moment she returned, Ghostfire, the alien girl he once fed, something deep inside him knew. The past was coming back, and it wasn't coming alone. She stayed near the farm now. Her soldiers set up small outposts on the nearby ridges. They didn't interfere with his land, but they were always watching the sky, the trees, the paths. Ghostfire didn't say much about it at first, but her golden eyes were sharper than ever. One night, Eli asked, "What are you expecting?" She stared into the fire, her voice low. "Trouble," she said. "They found me once before. They'll come again." He didn't ask who they were, not yet. A few days later, he got his answer. It began with smoke on the horizon. Too dark for forest fire, too thick to be anything natural. Her scouts returned quickly. Whispering in her alien language, Ghostfire turned to Eli, her face cold. "They're here," she said. "Slavers." Eli stood still. "The ones who caught you when you were a child?" She nodded. "They never forget, never forgive. They've chased me from system to system. And now they've followed me here." Eli's jaw tightened. "This world isn't ready for that kind of fight," he said. She looked at him with a quiet sadness. "I didn't mean to bring them," she said softly. "But I won't let them take it from you." The colony was warned. Some packed and fled. Others hid in bunkers. But Eli didn't move. This was his land, his home. He had built it with his hands, watered it with sweat, and lived on it with silence. He wasn't leaving, and neither was she, as the enemy ships appeared in the sky, sleek, black, sharp-edged. Like blades, Ghostfire's troops prepared defenses. Turrets were planted near the tree lines, drones floated above. But Eli could feel it, the slavers weren't here just to fight. They were here for revenge. That evening, a message came through the air, a loud voice, transmitted across every speaker and screen. It was a slaver captain. His voice was cruel, mocking. "You took something that belonged to us," he said. "She ran from us and became your little warrior. But we remember the girl, and we see her now." Ghostfire stood in front of the screen, arms folded, eyes like fire. "She belongs to no one," Eli muttered beside her. Ghostfire didn't blink. "They think I'm still that child," she said. "But I'm not running this time." When the slaver dropships came, the valley turned into a battlefield. Ghostfire's troops moved fast, setting up traps, shielding the crops. Eli didn't have much left from his soldier days, but he still had an old shotgun, some tools, and his brain. He knew these hills better than anyone. "I'm not going to." "Hide," he told her. Ghostfire frowned. "You're not a fighter anymore." "I'm not helpless either," he said firmly. "This land feeds me. This cabin is mine. Let them try." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're braver than most warriors I've known." The first wave hit at dawn. Slavers in black armor rushed through the trees, firing plasma bolts. Ghostfire met them head-on, blades flashing, armor glowing. Her soldiers moved like water, silent and deadly. Eli stayed behind the fences, protecting the rear line. He had set traps, explosive barrels, electric wires, spike pits, and they worked. More than once he saw a slaver fall and never rise. But they kept coming, wave after wave. "Too many," one soldier shouted. They brought a full strike team. Then Eli saw it, a massive mech stomping through the trees. Its metal skin was thick, its arms glowing with energy. It was heading straight for the cabin. Ghostfire saw it too, but she was pinned down. She looked at Eli, and without speaking, they both knew. He ran, grabbing his old homemade impade bomb. Just one chance. He sprinted through the back path, through the garden, past the broken fences, then slid under the mech's foot just as it lifted. With one strong pull, he yanked the pin. The blast wasn't big, but it was enough. The machine sparked, groaned, then fell with a thunderous crash. Eli lay still, coughing. He felt a warm hand pull him up. It was her Ghostfire, covered in dust, eyes wide. "You're insane," she whispered. "You're alive," he said, coughing a laugh behind them. The slavers were retreating. Their leader was gone, their machines broken. The sky, once filled with fire, was quiet again. Ghostfire helped him back to the cabin. "You saved my life again," she said softly. "You saved your own," he replied. "But I'm proud of you." That night, as stars returned to the sky, Eli sat beside her, watching the land they had defended together. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in many years, she felt safe again. Smoke still hung in the air from the first attack. Fires were out, bodies were cleared, but no one rested. Ghostfire stood at the edge of the field, armor scratched, cape torn. Her golden eyes scanned the hills. She knew this wasn't over. The slavers had only pulled back to strike harder. Eli patched up his shotgun and checked the traps again. His shoulder ached from the mech's blast, but he didn't complain. The land was quiet, but the kind of quiet that came before a storm. He had seen it before in wars long past, and now, here it was again, just outside his quiet home. Ghostfire turned to her soldiers. "We hold here," she said, her voice firm. "No retreat." Her troops nodded. Their armor dusty, but their spirits sharp. They would die for her if needed, because she had given them hope. But she wasn't planning to die today. That night, the stars vanished, covered by a massive shadow. A new slaver warship had arrived, twice the size of the last. Its engines roared like monsters, and the earth shook beneath their feet. Eli stood beside her on the porch, looking up. "That's not a raid ship," he said. "No," Ghostfire replied. "That's their flagship. A voice boomed across the valley. It came from the ship above. Sharp and cruel. You had your warning. Ghostfire, it said. Give yourself up and we spare this world. Ghostfire said nothing. Ailey watched her quietly. You're not going to surrender, he said. No, she whispered. I will never kneel to them again. She turned to Eli. If this is the end. I want you to know, she said. I survive because of you. If I fall knowing I honored the gift you gave me. Eli looked at her, his face calm but proud. You're not falling today, he said. Not while I'm still standing, before dawn. They prepared for the final stand. Ghostfire's troops took positions across the valley. Eli and a few villagers who had stayed behind loaded old weapons. Even the children helped set traps and alarms. Everyone had a part, because this wasn't just Ghostfire's fight anymore. It was for all of them. Then the slavers came. Hundreds of them dropped from the sky like metal rain. Black armored warriors, crawling machines, flying drones. The valley lit up with red and blue light as energy weapons fired. Ghostfire was the first to charge. Her blade glowed as she sliced through enemy lines. She moved like a storm fast. Precise, powerful, her armor cracked, but her heart did not. Eli fought from the porch, taking down enemies one by one. He was old, slower now, but he knew how to shoot. He never missed. Slavers tried to break through the lines, but every time they pushed forward, Ghostfire was there. Her troops followed her lead, drawing strength from her bravery. It was not just a battle, it was a message. You can't crush those who rise from nothing. Suddenly, a massive slaver leader dropped from the ship. Twice the size of any soldier, his armor glowed with red energy. He roared, pointing his blade at Ghostfire. You were property, he shouted. You were nothing. She walked toward him. I was a child, she said, voice calm. You made me a slave, but he, she pointed to Eli, made me free. They clashed, and the ground shook. Her blade met his, sparks flying, metal screaming. She was smaller, lighter but faster. She ducked, spun, struck, again and again, until finally she broke through his chest plate. With one final strike, she drove her blade into his core. His body dropped, armor smoking, and the slaver army paused. They watched in silence as their strongest leader fell. Eli limped over, breathing hard. Is it done? He asked. Ghostfire looked to the sky. The enemy ship was turning, retreating. The battle was over. Cheers rose across the valley. Children ran from hiding. Soldiers hugged one another. The villagers gathered around Eli and Ghostfire. She raised her blade in the air, and all around her, warriors roared her name. But she turned to Eli, and in a soft voice only he could hear, she said, I protected your home, just like you protected my life. Eli smiled, leaning on his shotgun. Guess. We're even now. She shook her head slowly. No, we're family now, and family doesn't keep score. The valley was quiet again. The fires had burned out. The enemies had gone. Ashes had settled. And life had returned. But something had changed, something deep and lasting. Ghostfire stood in the middle of the field, her cape fluttering softly in the breeze. Children ran nearby, laughing. Villagers worked together to rebuild the fences and patch up homes. And at the center of it all was Eli's little cabin, still standing strong. She walked up the wooden steps and sat beside Eli on the porch. He was sipping warm tea, watching the hills with tired but peaceful eyes. Never thought I'd see the day we'd win a war right here, he said with a small chuckle. You've seen many days like this, she replied gently. Too many, Eli said, but none quite like this one. She nodded. This time we didn't just survive, she said. We protected something good. A soft silence settled between them. Not awkward, not empty, just calm, like the land around them. Then she reached into her armor and pulled out a small device. She placed it in his hand. What's this? He asked, turning it over. A land claim beacon, she said. It links this area to my name. No one, no slaver, no government, no outsider can ever touch it now. Eli looked at her, then at the hills. You're giving me ownership of all this? No, she said, smiling softly. I'm giving you protection. This is still your home, but now it's also part of me. He stared at the device, then quietly set it down beside him. I never asked for anything, he said. You gave enough, she replied. You gave when you had nothing. Now I give because I can. Down in the valley, her soldiers were planting new crops. They worked with the villagers, not above them. Not apart, and for the first time, human and alien worked side by side, not out of fear, but trust. Later that evening, a small celebration was held. Food was shared, music played from old speakers. Children danced under the stars. Eli sat near the fire, watching everyone laugh and smile. It had been years since he had heard laughter like this. Ghostfire joined him with a plate of food. She still wore her armor, but now it looked more ceremonial than battle-worn. You could take the armor off. You know, he teased. She smirked. Not yet. I like them remembering who I am. But I know who you are, he said. You're the little girl who cried while eating dry bread. Now you lead armies. She looked at him, eyes soft. And you're the man who gave me my first reason to live. They sat like that for a while, watching the stars blink slowly above the trees. Then she asked, Do you think I could stay? Eli raised an eyebrow. You've got a fleet, a throne, maybe even a galaxy. I don't want any of that tonight. She said, I want a place to belong, and this is the only place that ever felt like home. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he stood and walked into the cabin. When he returned, he was holding something wrapped in cloth. He handed it to her. She opened it slowly, carefully. Inside was the small silver charm she had dropped all those years ago. Her hands trembled as she touched it. You kept this? Always, he said. I told myself if I ever saw you again, I'd give it back. Tears welled up in her golden eyes. She clutched the charm close to her heart. I don't need a crown, she whispered. I just need a place where I can sit beside someone who sees me. Eli smiled. Then stay, he said. I've got a spare room. Ghostfire laughed through her tears. I'll take it. And so she did. She stayed. Not as a warrior, not as a commander, but as someone who had come full circle. Over time, the farm grew into something more. A haven for those in need. Alien and human alike came through the valley. They heard stories of an old man and the warrior girl who protected him. Some called it legend, others called it luck. But those who came and stayed called it something else. Home. And every evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, Eli and Ghostfire sat on the porch. Sometimes talking, sometimes just listening, but always together. No more battles, no more running. Just two lives forever changed by one small act of kindness.